Hey traders, welcome back to the FXE YouTube channel. Today's CPI gave us an interesting whipsaw, and we still have FOMC and ECB to come this week. In this video, I'll do a quick review of the price action up to now, and then give some ideas of where I think price may go next. But first, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into it. Okay, so currently we're at the end of the day on Tuesday. I fell asleep before New York today and woke up just a little while back. I checked the CPI result and then looked at the charts and started to get a better idea of why price moved the way it did. So CPI came in higher than expected, and as a result, we saw short-term strength in the dollar. Tomorrow or later today, depending on where you're at, we have PPI and FOMC. So expect another crazy day of price action. And the week's not over yet because we still have ECB the day after. So moving to the charts, I'm going to go straight to DXY and give a quick review of the price action that we saw since the beginning of the week. And I'll start with the lower time frame, so on the hourly time frame, just so it's a little clearer to see what happened. So we started the week bullish, so you can see we started to push up higher and higher as we're breaking these intermediate highs, coming back down for mitigation, and thereafter continuing further to the upside. So you can see the bullish PD arrays are being respected on the way up, but then when we came back into the weekly fair value gap, we had an aggressive move to the downside. So this aggressive move to the downside created a fair value gap, and it looks like it was partially mitigated here, and thereafter that continuation to the downside. So early in the morning, a volume imbalance was created, and you can see it wasn't really filled, partially mitigated but wasn't filled, and we expect the volume imbalance to be completely filled. And as price was moving lower and lower, we had that CPI result, and we had a massive whipsaw as a result of it. So price aggressively came to the downside, mitigating the extreme, and thereafter had a very, very aggressive move to the upside, filled the volume imbalance, and thereafter came right back down. So pretty sloppy in terms of price action, but with this aggressive move, I think the most interesting thing is we didn't see that continuation to the upside. So after the volume imbalance was filled, came right back down and has been pushing down ever since. So for the time being, structure is still bullish. So we're just doing mitigation of the extreme and then pushing up higher. So this was the last break of the high. And then this last push up yesterday, it actually created equal highs. So you can also see that every time we're coming into the weekly fair value gap, we have really aggressive moves to the downside. So the way I'm looking at it is this is just consolidation for the next big move. And as we're aggressively pushing down every time we come into the fair value gap, I think the next big move is going to be to the downside. But as of right now, structure is still bullish. And to get that confirmation that it is going to shift back to the downside, then we need to break this low. So we need this low to give the confirmation that it is in fact bearish. But if we do that, I'm just looking at what's been left behind. So we do have some liquidity resting right here, and we have those equal highs. I could see those two areas where DXY may want to come back for before continuing to the downside, but at the same time, I also wouldn't be surprised if price just continued to push down from here. But if we do get that pullback, then we may have a retest of the extreme. There's also a small little fair value gap right here, so we may come back into that as well. and thereafter come back up if it wants to go for that liquidity before the next move to the downside. And again, I would be targeting a break of this low to get that confirmation that it is turning bearish. And then the second scenario I could see is, like I said, if DXY wants to go back for the liquidity, going for these equal highs. So taking out the equal highs, and then after that coming right back down and targeting this low to confirm that it's going to shift bearish. Okay, really quick before I move on to EU. So just want to give a quick update on EG. So as I mentioned in previous videos, it's been really bearish for the last couple of weeks. So we swept a lot of liquidity at the lows, and you can see we've done a lot of consolidation, and it looks like right here we had our spring and broke the range. It looks like it's going to reverse and continue to the upside now. If I go on the lower time frames, it'll be a little clearer. So a lot of consolidation in this area. One last sweep of the lows before having an aggressive move to the upside, pullback, mitigation of the extreme, and thereafter continuation to the upside, breaking the range high, and some consolidation here, but my guess is maybe a pullback and continuation to the upside from now on. And if that happens, then that's going to give strength to EG, which is going to give strength to the euro, and potentially could give us the strength on EU to see a reversal and that continuation to the upside. Okay, so moving on to EU. So I'm going to start directly on the lower time frames, just so it's clearer to see for the market review. And also I'm using a different chart. So this is actually not the chart that I use for YouTube. This is a chart I use for trading. And the reason why I'm using this one is because I already have all my markups on it that I normally draw in as I'm trading. So anyways, we started the week right here. So we started the week bullish. So price continued to push higher, failed to come into the supply at this point, and thereafter started to shift to the downside. We got our first confirmation here when we broke this low, and thereafter continued to push back up for a pullback. And you can see we did break the previous high, come back into the supply, and thereafter push to the downside. So the push to the downside came quite deep, so it came into the 15-minute demand, and you can see initially when it touched it, we had our first reaction, and thereafter came back to mitigate the supply, and then came down even lower, and then deeper into the 15-minute demand, and then we had another reaction. The reaction only came to supply, but you can see when it came back down, the low was respected, and thereafter aggressively pushed to the upside, breaking this high as well as this high, giving some confirmation that it's going to push to the upside now. So some consolidation and then pull back, mitigating the fair value gap. So hourly and 15-minute fair value gap right here. And after tapping into that, reacting off of it, pushing higher, breaking the range, giving confirmation that it's going to push to the upside now. And then thereafter pulling back one more time into the extreme, so 15-minute demand, before reaction and pushing back up. Didn't break the previous high, but at least for me, didn't need to because we already had the confirmation here. Pulling back one more time, mitigating the demand again, and thereafter continuing to the upside, this time breaking the high on the left. After breaking the high, pulling back, mitigating the fair value gap, and after mitigating the fair value gap, pushing one more time to the upside, breaking the previous high, and then after that having another pullback. And this high over here, you can see, took out the supply. coming back, mitigating 15-minute fair value gap, and then after that, once again pushing to the upside, breaking the previous high, coming back higher in the range, breaking all this internal liquidity on the left, and then after that coming into the extreme or close to the extreme before having one more significant pullback. It's quite a deep pullback back into the 15-minute fair value gap before continuing further to the upside, and this time breaking the high to the left. So if you watch my previous video, I said this was a strong high, and as we've broken that strong high, it's a clear indication that we'll likely push to the upside now. So I'm seeing this as an hourly shift, and after this hourly shift, I'm guessing we're going to have some mitigation before continuation to the upside, similar to what we saw here. So after we started to break some highs, had a really significant pullback before continuing to the upside. And one other thing, if you watched my weekend video, I gave some bearish and bullish scenarios, so both of them played out. So I drew in this supply as an area that I was watching for price to come down from. So as you can see, we did come quite deep into the 15-minute supply, almost to the 50%, before we had a reaction, pullback, and then coming back down. And then I said for bullish scenarios, I could see price coming into the 15-minute demand, and you can see that's the area that we actually reversed from, giving confirmation that price is going to come up from now. Okay, so think about what could happen next. So as I said, this was a pretty clear confirmation that we're going to continue to the upside now. We did have an aggressive push down after breaking this high. We didn't get continuation to the downside from here. Instead, pushing right back up, and this is the area that we're having the consolidation now. So you can see we've created some relative equal highs in this area. So price could just continue up from here, so we may see a mitigation of demand. You can see that demand is being respected all the way up, so may come back into this demand before continuing to the upside. So let's just mark that. So unmitigated demand is right here. So could see something like this where we have the retest of the demand before continuation to the upside. But I think what's more likely at this point is we're going to have a bigger pullback into the unmitigated areas on the overall leg. So for that scenario, I could see price to come up, sweep the relative equal highs that we have up here, coming deeper into the fair value gap, the extreme of the supply, and then coming down for the deeper pullback. Deeper pullback could be this demand area, so we have hourly and 15-minute unmitigated demand here, where we could see a shift before continuation to the upside. And like I said, continuation to the upside, I'd like to see the highs go to give that second confirmation that now it's going to push to the upside. Second scenario I can see is much deeper mitigation, so coming all the way down to this area where we have unmitigated fair value gap. So we have a 15-minute fair value gap that's left unmitigated. We also have an hourly demand as well as 15-minute demand where we may come into, see a shift, and from here push to the upside, ultimately breaking the previous high to give that confirmation that yes, it's going to push up now. And there's a lot of liquidity that's created on the way up. So all of this right here is resting liquidity. So it does make sense that maybe it does come down this low. This area has been left unmitigated before reversing and continuing further to the upside. And upside targets, as I said on the weekend video, are going to be this daily fair value gap that's been left unmitigated, and there's a 4-hour fair value gap at the top of it that could also be targeted before either reversing and coming right back down, or continuing to the upside and breaking the previous high, and then just continuing up from there. Okay, anyways, that's the way I'm looking at the charts now. So more bullish than bearish on EU after we're starting to see breaks of highs now. So we are starting to see strength in EU, and also what I showed you on EG. So EG is clearly showing strength now. So both of those are clear reasons why EU may continue to the upside, and we also have the fundamentals as well, so that may also be a catalyst for a bigger push to the upside. So like I said, very unlikely that interest rates are going to go up. At the same time, they probably won't go down. Well, it's definitely not going to go down either. So this could be a catalyst to push EU to the upside when we have that FOMC announcement later today. Anyways, that's it for today's update. Hopefully you guys found some value in today's video, and if you did, a like and a subscribe would be appreciated. Good luck trading today, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.
Black Swan.